is advised. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Board Games Unlocked, and Brad and I are going to be doing our top 10 worst Kickstarter games, because, I mean, whenever there's really good Kickstarters, you know there's probably 20 times more bad Kickstarter games out there. And, I mean, why not? A lot of people actually seem to really like our negative lists, like the disappointing or the bad ones, more than, because most people don't do those. Mm-hmm. They're just like, because every game is good in some reviewers' eyes. Right.
Until this list.
So, the criteria, and Brad and I never talk about like criteria for our lists prior. We usually just hey, here's an idea, let's just run with that. So my criteria for worst Kickstarter games was kind of a combination of mainly how bad the game was. Like from start, whenever it came out to playing it. But I also have a few on here that were, the whole Kickstarter experience was an absolute nightmare. That it could be the game was still good once you finally got it, or whatever. So I just kind of did, those were my criterias.
Mine were mostly the quality of the game.
Yeah.
The Kickstarter experience may have touched a little bit on some of them, but mainly it was just because they were games that I paid money for, and they were just complete crap.
Yeah. And this game, or this list, is going to be, this was a sore subject, because the more I kept going down from 11 to 1, the more mad I got. Well, so I'm like, ooh!
Well, in my list, I've owned all of these except for number 1. That's why my list is close, because number 1 is so far the worst Kickstarter. I didn't even have to play it.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
It'll be interesting.
Okay. I have bought and played all of these. So, and I don't own any of these anymore except for one. I still own one. So yeah, these are ones that I've played, and then I was like, this is awful. I hate how much I paid for this. Mm-hmm. And I should have put the price of how much all of these were.
Yeah, most of mine weren't too crazy expensive on
some of mine were, but anyway, let's go ahead and get started. I will start, because I'm on this rant right now, with a dishonorable mention, at number 11 for Uboot. So this one was a tricky one. This is why it's my dishonorable mention, because the game itself is not horrible. If you have 3 friends that this is the only game you own, you're submarine experts, you were actually, you're retired Navy, and you spent your entire naval career on a submarine, there you go. Then you'll be able to play the game. This game was, I guess to some people would praise it for how in-depth it was, for, each of the roles and how thematically experienced it was. It's more of a submarine simulation. However, one big negative about this game, and the first time I've ever seen it done, there was no insert for this game when it came. I just got the box and I opened it and everything was just everywhere, and I'm like, this is new. And I did, an unboxing for this one, and I was like, well, that's extremely frustrating. So, and then the component quality wasn't the best. And trying to figure out and play this game was such a slog that I immediately was like, nope, this is definitely not for me and my group. However, I understand that if people want to take the time, they want to dive into it, they really want to feel like they're in a submarine, this is a good one, hence why it's not quite on the list. So that's my number 11, Uboot.
Yeah, it was pretty rough. I watched a demo of it at Origins last year.
Yeah.
And, they were having a tough time learning the game.
Yeah.
Like the guys, because there were some older guys sitting there, and it was just...
Right.
It's kind of a mess.
It's like, look, I get it. You want to make a game that's as close to the real thing as possible, and I commend you for that. But maybe you should also make it a little bit more clear, especially when going on Kickstarter, because it sounded awesome. Mm-hmm. Like, it made, like, if you want to play Uboot or something like that, get Captain Sonar. Like, that's a way more real-time, fun, easy to learn, where everyone has their own roles, but it's team versus team. So just get that game instead of paying for that. So that's my number 11, Uboot.
All right, my number 11 is number 11 because it's kind of a cheat in a way.
Okay.
TMG, Tasty Minstrel Games.
Yeah. I'm going to look up the price for all these.
A handful of years ago had this Kickstarter trend that they jumped all in on over a matter of a year or year and a half of putting out pay what you want micro games. Okay. Like they did not have a like you paid what you wanted to.
Okay.
And of course, I mean, they suggested like $3, $5, or you can pay up to whatever. So they had games like Burgoo, Coin Age, Templar Intrigue, Where Art Thou, Romeo, This Town Ain't Big Enough for the 2 to 4 of Us. Those were the 5 that mainly came out, and I backed them all because they were dirt cheap.
Yeah.
Right? And not really expecting, because when you see the Tiny Epic games, they're in boxes and everything. These came in like an envelope. Every single one of them was just like a little envelope with the stuff in them. And I don't know if it's on this list because of the model.
Okay.
Or the game, because the games weren't that good anyway.
Right.
Like the Coin Age one, you actually use your own coins and stuff.
Oh,
and
wow.
It was like little area control on these cards, and you use your own coins and different odds and ends.
It's just cheap.
Right. Well,
okay.
and it was pay what you want. I mean, so it was back when these were coming out was when micro games were the thing. Love Letter was out, and everybody wanted to jump on the small card games and the micro game fad that was going on. And none of these were very good at all.
That is so
and like
funny.
I said, that's why I put it here as the honorable mention, because I didn't pay a ton for these.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like I was butthurt by that. It was just a weird experience, and I think it was kind of a failed deal on their part.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it, especially because the whole point of Kickstarter is to make your dreams a reality.
Right.
And for a company, an established company at that point, to be like, hey, here's some shit, like, you want to pay 7 cents for our game? And it's like, no.
Right.
Apparently it worked out because it got funded.
I still have them because I can't even give them away. So,
throw them away. For the record, I have thrown my there's games where I'm like, look, no one's gonna sell this. I don't even really want to ship it.
You're talking about Assault the Giants.
I did throw that. Yeah, I'm like, I probably could have made actually some decent money off of that one, but I was like, it was just awful. But yeah, that's a good one. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
All right. So my number 10. This is probably the only one. Whenever I was thinking, I initially had Lockup on here. Mm-hmm. I took it off.
I thought about it.
I took it off because a lot of people like that game. It wasn't for me, but I thought of a game that was actually better. Mm-hmm. And it actually ended up still fitting on the 10 spot, and that is Unbroken. That's the solo survival game. So here's why it's number 10. Because the game is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
It's Golden Bell Studios that caused some shitty controversy surrounding this game. And basically, it's kind of like, well, if you're a designer, maybe you should pick who's publishing your game, do some research.
Right.
I felt so bad for him because in the game, he actually had, I don't remember the designer's name, he actually had plans for expansions. He had this kind of weird Adam and Eve, angel, demon world creation that he wanted to make his own world out of it. That ship has probably sailed unless he can somehow cut ties with Golden Bell and then find someone else who actually cares or do it himself. So this is why it's at number 10, because the game is good. The game's actually pretty fun, solo, interesting. It's strictly a sort of gather resources to build up your character to kill the next boss, and there's enough variety in there. I actually still have the game. This is the only one that I still have. And he actually commented and he thanked me for covering his video or covering his game. But man, Golden Bell, they were so bad. They were so bad that they gave me at Gen Con a couple of years ago free games to do, and they weren't actually that awful. It was Strawberry Ninja and these really kind of micro games that I did run-throughs for or no run-through reviews. And once this whole show, I just deleted them. I'm like, I'm not covering any of your games when you're this garbage of a publisher.
Right.
So that's why this is where the stipulation of like, okay, well, it doesn't necessarily have to be the game that's so bad, but the whole Kickstarter experience for so many people, they were asking for a bunch of extra money.
Well, that's what I was saying. Didn't they start asking for more shipping from people and stuff like that?
Before their pledge came out, they were asking people to pay extra shipping. And actually, funny enough, Ludus Magnus, the people who did Black Rose Wars, they're asking for that in their Kickstarter for Wave 2. $15, but it's like, look, you are the company. I'm the consumer. Like, it's not my job to make sure that you guys understand logistics. It's not our fault that this whole pandemic and thing happened. That it's like, you eat the cost. Every other company has seemed to got that. They're like, hey, by the way, it's going to be a little bit more expensive. However, we're just going to eat the cost. That's that. So you got to be super careful when you're asking people who have already paid for your game and paid for shipping, when you're asking them for extra money. And then demanding and at times refusing to deliver the good because people weren't paying the extra shipping. Now, I got my copy, so luckily I wasn't one of those that were affected. I don't know how the whole thing resolved. I'm pretty sure Golden Bell is just like dead in everyone's eyes. But yeah, I feel bad for the guy. I would like to see this war. The theme was pretty interesting. Quality of the game was okay, but for what it was, I enjoyed it. And I'm looking up the prices. It was $40.
Yeah.
So, pretty good game for $40. The only one on this list that I kept. So that's my number 10.
All right, my number 10, and I'm not picking on Tasty Minstrel Games. I promise.
Just fill them up. My number 9. Funny enough, also TNG.
It is.
No way.
My number 10 is a game. It was only $15, the Kickstarter. So again, another cheaper one.
Oh, actually, funny enough,
yes.
I should say that the games that you and I back are almost radically different. Like, I will usually end up backing, like, you'll like back stuff and then like pull out.
Or I'll do $1 and then
like I just did the Dawn of Madness all in,
really,
and I got extra stuff, so that was like.
I'm trying to decide if I want to keep my $300 pledge for all the Nemesis stuff. But,
I knew it.
But anyway, so Dungeon Roll is my number 10.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've played it.
I have not.
It came in a box that looked like a treasure chest. All right, it was an annoying
I think
box
I've seen
anyway,
that.
right?
Yeah.
If you did the Kickstarter, it was a mimic box. It was like a.
Okay.
Art of a mimic.
Cool.
And pretty much what the game is you have a hero, right? And then you have dice. You roll the dice, and you're trying to take out these bad guys, bad things that keep popping up, and you're trying to go down the dungeon. As far as it's a push your luck game.
Oh, okay.
So you had one of the Kickstarter stretch goals was I think it was like a D12 or a D10 or something like that, and that was your level counter, how far down the deal you'd go.
Okay.
And everything, but it just the box was crap.
Yeah.
It was, after played it once or twice, it was just boring as hell.
Right.
TMG does excellent with their bigger games.
It's done.
It's
probably the intern,
like Belfort and Orleans.
Yeah.
The big stuff like that. But when they try to do these small games, and it just doesn't work.
Because people think micro game and they think easy.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it's really cheap.
And then it's not cooperative either. So you play with extra people, and you're going down, and everybody's trying to get the most treasure and come up with the most, have the most treasure and everything. And I didn't have a chapped ass because it was only $15, but
true.
But it was just a fail. I was wanting it because it was like solo game, it's kind of cool looking, but then my lid popped, like broke off because it was a paper hinge.
Oh, gross.
Lid. So like it just ripped off one time, the lid. So I was just like, this, and
that sucks.
It could have been with one of those magnet, how they do the little magnet
class
things or something. But for $15 again, it's not. I got my $15 worth out of it probably.
You played it once,
plays,
yeah.
But it was not a fun game after that point.
Luckily with this list, because whenever we did our best list, all we could do was praise it. Here we get to talk about the actual problems of Kickstarter,
right?
That you gotta be careful of whenever it comes to backing games. All right.
I'm looking at my prices too. As
That's
you go,
fine. So my number 9 is the newest game on this list, and it's mainly on this list because of the company who actually made it. And I have a run through for it, it's actually I think my latest run through that I just did at the time of this recording, and that's Godspeed. So Godspeed is a game is Pandasaurus's newest game, where they initiate. And here's the other thing about Kickstarter: when you are doing a video for your game, so many companies make the video as thematic as possible. Do you know? Because it's that's what most people are going to go.
Hook.
Yeah, that's the hook. So this game sounded so freaking cool. Which, if you don't know what the theme is, it's that their title was "The Space Race Was a Lie." So essentially, you went to, like, because the whole spacer is supposed to get to the moon the fastest.
Right.
So that's what I thought. And then the way it all made it seem was like, okay, well, you get there and you find it's been colonized, or that that there's some creature or whatever it was.
Right.
No, you don't go to the moon. It's some fuck all planet that it's just like, okay, well, Russia, the USA, they've been here. Or no, it was like Japan was there first, and so everyone was playing all these different factions. So I guess they put all of their theme into their Kickstarter, because there was no theme in this game.
Right.
Like, go ahead.
I wasn't a fan of the art of the cover. I mean, I don't know what it looks like on the inside, but that whole the cover art just turned me off of that game.
It was interesting because the way they made it seem was like this guy saw something horrific, and that it was like almost a sci-fi-esque kind of thing.
Right.
No, it's a decent worker placement game with a busted-ass bidding mechanic that, as we kept playing the game, the more mad I got. Because they try to do, I swear, Pandasaurus they were one-hit wonder, Dinosaur Island. And they've been trying to capture that same lightning in a bottle since. I can't think of another game that they've done that's actually good.
I kind of like that little card game, the Western fantasy themed card game that I can't think of it. Keep going. I can't think of it.
So the bidding mechanic sucks ass, and because basically the first player marker doesn't pass around; it goes into the bidding. So you have a draw phase.
Yes.
Where everyone tries to use their workers to bid, or not bid, to vote to see if this effect passes or fails. That was fine. That was actually pretty interesting. Then you go to the bidding, where a deck of cards, you reveal some cards, and then you bid your own workers and maybe some money. Whoever is highest goes. However, if you're highest, you get first pick, and if you, once again, were the person who bid the highest, once everyone else's pick, you get another pick.
Oh my.
So it's like, all it did was someone could be like, okay, I'm going to grab first player because it's a worker placement game, so me deciding where I want to go is good. Okay, you get a card, you get a card. Well, there's 2 cards left. Okay, well, since I bid the highest, I get to pick whatever's left over.
It's a big
it made me so mad. I won. And I won the last game we played. And I was still furious. And that's usually the sign in my book of a bad game, if even the person who wins can't enjoy their win.
Yes. I would say that's, yeah.
So it's just, this one was kind of like, okay, not necessarily mismarketed, but the fact that this game was so blah. The inside was kind of like that. Did you ever watch Teletubbies and that pink shit that they drank? That's kind of like what they splattered as the color over the. It was like a very like weird pink and very weird teal.
Yeah.
None of the cards that you actually would try to gather resources to build had any type of title or anything. And once again, they have separate phases. And they've been trying to rip that off from. They're like, hey, that worked for Dinosaur Island. Maybe it'll work for the rest of our garbage games. But yeah, it wasn't like, even though I just ripped on it for the past 5 minutes, it wasn't the worst game. However, I paid $115 for it, and I sold it as soon as I got done playing. So, it's my number 9, Godspeed.
All right. My number 9 was a game I was very, very excited for, because I'm a big fan of the original, the game this was built upon, the system.
Okay.
Richard Lanius game. It's Defenders of the Last Stand.
Oh, was that Kickstarter?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't play it.
It was a $65 Kickstarter.
Okay.
It didn't really have. I mean, you could add on more dice, which I did and stuff. But Defenders of the Realm is a wonderful game with the fantasy theme and all that stuff. And then I like post-apocalyptic stuff, so Defenders: The Last Stand came out. It's like, oh, it's gonna be kind of like Mad Max, or something like that. And it just was not good. Like the best part of this game was the story aspect that it brought into it, which I hope and pray that they're putting into the new Defenders of the Realm whenever that Kickstarter decides to launch. Because I hope they take that and put it into the Defenders of the Realm, because that would be awesome. Because Defenders of the Realm with story would be sweet.
So they have the quests,
right?
Defenders.
But this was actually story. Like this was a good, it was super thematic.
Gotcha.
But this one just, the miniatures were weird. The board art was crap. The coolest thing about the game was the stories, and the dice looked cool.
Yeah.
It was a letdown. Because I figured I liked the theme. And it's the same system,
sure,
and everything, but it just wasn't.
That's pretty interesting, because it's like, was the story like, was the game mechanics centered around the story?
No, it was Defenders of the Realm, but they threw in like there was a certain part of the board you couldn't go into because it was you'd get radiated.
Oh, okay.
And then you could eventually turn into a mutant.
Yeah.
You'd mutate throughout the game too.
Okay.
And I think they wanted to make it super thematic even more, and it almost was like too much.
Oh, I see.
Like the thing that makes Defenders of the Realm awesome is the core mechanics of, you're going here, you have missions, you're working out together, you're stopping the things advancing.
Yeah, almost like Pandemic, right?
Well, yeah, shut up. But anyway, this was they just kind of tried to do too much, and it pulled away from that.
Gotcha.
And there's a reason that, because it's not made anymore.
It's not made. It's not supported.
Yeah. I mean, it just fell flat for everybody.
Yeah.
And
they didn't even do expansions or anything out of that. Which is interesting, because I think a lot of because the earlier iterations of Kickstarter games are radically different than what come out now.
Oh yeah.
It's either like, hey, here's our one game on Kickstarter. Now it's like, hey, here's 70 different boxes that you'll never find a place to store and get overwhelmed and eventually sell.
Yep.
So we got to find that balance. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good choice. I've never played it. I've only played Defenders of the Realm. Love it. I really want that second edition.
3 times and got rid of it because it just wasn't. Because I was hoping that it was something that it was just maybe a one-time instance where it kind of sucked.
For Defenders of the Realm?
Yeah. For Last Stand.
Oh, okay.
But then I played it a couple more times, and it's just the same stuff, so...
Yeah, that's a shame.
Yeah.
Okay. My number 8 is one of the most expensive Kickstarters that I've backed. That's not true. My initial pledge... So, the prices that I'm also going to say, don't take those for, face value. Don't be like, oh, well, okay. Because what we spend... could be radically different than what some other people might be able to take, or people could look at it and be like, oh no, that's a good price. The price actually for this one is actually really good. The game was just extremely boring, and that's Hate.
Ah, yes.
So Hate, my pledge was $120. I think I did all their add-ons afterwards. I'm not looking through all my add-on shit. Yeah. That was my base pledge, was $120. This game this was also a controversial one, not because of the company, because it was Simon, but the content around this game. I remember so many people bitching about this game because Hate is from a graphic novel, which I actually have both of them over there, and the art book, because I can separate reality from a story. But so this was obviously, it's centered in a post-apocalyptic world. Not a huge fan of, but this one sounded cool. We're Mother Earth it's awful. The world is very, very gruesome. Yes. If you watch anime at all, just think of Berserk, where it's just like that horrific type of storytelling. And that's kind of why I backed it, was because I was like, oh, that's really interesting. No one does that type of theme.
So with that game,
yep,
I didn't back it. I think This is a conspiracy theory of mine with this game.
Okay.
It's the only game CMON has done that they said, we're only doing it on Kickstarter. It's not, we're going to go retail.
Mm-hmm.
So it made a buttload of money because everybody was like, well, it's not going to go retail. I need to get it now, right?
Yeah.
It's almost, and I've heard a lot of people talk about the mechanics not being great and everything.
Yeah.
It's almost like they kind of use that FOMO, the fear of missing out, to sell it.
So they can make a whole bunch of money.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like... Because I was listening to a podcast at one point, and they were talking about it, and it was like, there's been a Kickstarter version of this sitting on the shelf at my local game store, for a couple of years.
No one wants it,
and nobody wants, and it's like,
well, especially if it's overpriced. I would not be surprised. CMON also recently got audited and was under some weird legal shit. I didn't read too much into that because the sources were like not 100% accurate, and I'm like, well, if CMON goes under, I don't really care as long as I get my Bloodborne game.
Like Masters of the Universe.
So I didn't really care too much. But anyway, the game for Hate was your basically bog standard skirmish game. Mm-hmm. It was centered. There was a campaign where there was the map, and there was kind of like an outer, middle, and inner region where you would pick other people. This in theory sounded really cool. Because you would pick other people. Let's say we want to do a campaign of 4. Well, I'd have my faction, you'd have yours, Kat would have hers, and then someone else would have theirs. Then, depending on where we started, it's just like, okay, so I'll start here, you start here, and we'll start in the 4 corners. Well, we're actually closest to each other, so we'll battle. Whoever wins this one will be able to move on, and then you would eventually start fighting everyone else, and leveling up and things like that. The game was so boring. Oh my god, it was so boring. The huts looked like shit. The miniatures, though,
they were
so good. Like, they were so good. Like, you think of any game that has the best miniatures you've seen, it's shit compared to how the minis for Hate. So, if that was their conspiracy, if that was their idea, was like, hey, we're not putting it on retail, then they still put some effort into their minis.
Yeah.
So, I gotta commend them for that.
It's just something I was thinking about, because that's the only game they've ever done that with. To my knowledge, where they've done this, it's not ever going to go retail. This is because they announced it as that, like on that Kickstarter. It was like only going to be on Kickstarter release only, not going retail. They
probably, what I would say, I don't really think CMON's like a shady company. They probably did that because of the content material.
That could have been
like it's very like it's like. Because you can play as a faction or get like an ally that's actually like Mother Earth, and like how the world I think ascended into or descended into this post was like she got like raped and like killed, and it's like that's like the header was like, so that you just jump right into it. So I think it was more content than anything. But yeah, like, it was for a lot of money. I still wavered on this game of keeping it or not because the minis were just so good. Ended up selling it, obviously, because, what am I going to do with minis that don't do anything? Just stare at them. Yep. And be like, man, those are good. Too bad the game sucked. So that's my number 8, Hate.
All right,
funny enough, that rhymed.
Yes. My number 8 was a game I did not back on Kickstarter, but I got a Kickstarter version of it secondhand.
I was trying to find games like that, and I couldn't.
I shouldn't have got it because I know you don't like this game, and I bought it against my own better judgment to try it, and then I sold it immediately.
Was it the game I told you not to worry about?
I think so.
Okay.
Dice Settlers.
This company makes phenomenal games too.
I know, and they had a company. It has a kind of the idea, the theme of this game was something I thought that my wife and I could play, and it'd be everything. But it was like watching paint dry, and then the damn bags were so tiny.
They did release bigger bags. I don't know if it was like for free or something if you had to pay for them, but I think they did release or smaller.
Yeah, it was just one I regretted buying just because it was so boring. And
my favorite thing that has come from that game is when Dice Tower did their review and they were rating it at the end. It was whenever Sam and them were all there, and Z was like, I don't even want to give it a rating because it's so forgettable. He's like, I can't give it one, and I was like, I feel you.
Yeah.
Because you can't give it a 5. That's an average game, and that game was so just, what It's so non-existent.
Because these are the guys the company that came out with like
Teotihuacan, Simurgh,
Sulkin and stuff.
Sulkin was
the same designers.
Same designer. Yeah. I think Trismegistus. Yeah. They're doing another one, Palahalalula, whatever. Yeah, it's like, I think it's Egyptian.
Yeah.
I cannot wait for that.
But yeah, this one is just.
Yeah, NSKN
or NSKN, I think.
I think you're right. Yeah.
But yeah, it was just one I should have just listened to the popular opinion and not waste my money on it because it was very.
I think they have an expansion too.
Good lord!
I don't know. Hey,
is it something that comes out and slaps you in the face?
It's the designer who shows up and just like holds your family hostage until you buy another copy. All right, my number 7 is probably this list might get a rise out of people. My number 7 has. It was a huge letdown because, as far as I know, I'm the only one beside me and the friends that I played this with. We're the only ones who actually didn't like this game. My number 7 is Western Legends. So, Western Legends for me was advertised as a Western sandbox game, which is technically true. You can do whatever you want. However, if you actually want to win in the competitive game, you're not going to do that. You're going to do very specific things. And that's why when it comes to a sandbox game, you have to be very, very... Or a sandbox idea, you have to be very careful. Now, here's the other thing about this. Is you play as heroes within... Or people within Western legend, I guess. And... So, you have specific abilities, and you can essentially do one of two things. You can be a lawful guy, or you can be a criminal. And if you're a criminal, all you pretty much have to do is just constantly go back and rob the bank, because you get a shit ton of points. And there's 2 tracks on this game. You either can go negative, or you can do the bad track, which will get you a lot of points as you go up, but you can lose your... reputation. If you get captured or if you get something like that, you can lose that. If you're going good, you can't lose it unless you decide to go evil, which I don't know why anyone would do that. However, in my experience, and I play this game quite a bit to figure it out, I find that it's extremely unbalanced, that it's way easier to be evil than it is to be good. Okay, well, that makes some sense. And people are like, no, like, because you can lose your progress on that track, so people just have to, they just have to arrest you. And it's like, okay, if that's true, now you're forcing another player to radically just focus you. Because, like, in a 4-player game, it's like, well, okay, you don't want to stop them, no one wants to stop, so I guess I'll be the one to do that, to make sure that he doesn't win. So now I'm being screwed over, trying to dick another. It's just, it just had so many problems. Like, the combat was based around 21. It was like blackjack. I hated it. It was so weird. And then, because I had the 2 expansions, and then I think they just released another one, Annie Up or something. I just didn't give 2 shits about those expansions. This company is just riddled with just letdowns for me. Colossal Games, I think, is they've done. They do. I played another.
What else did
they do? They did Mizo, which was their Mayan kind of theme, which just looked like a ripoff of Rising Sun.
Yeah.
And then it looked like. I didn't play it. It looked like it. And then they did Kami-sama, which almost went on this list, but that one was actually kind of decent. But it was still kind of blah. Those are the 3 that come to mind, is what they've done. But yeah, Western Legends, and my pledge was 95. Sure, okay, like, it's neither here nor there. I don't like it, and I like Western themes. They're not done enough. I just think that they went a weird route with the sandbox. Do whatever you want. Yeah, you're right. Okay, you want to be good? Well, you're taking cattle back and forth. That's it. So, I don't know. I think it would have been really cool.
Western Trail.
And I'd rather play that. Yeah. I think it'd be really cool if they had done the sandbox in like a story type of element instead of a point gathering Western game. So, yeah, that's my number 7, Western Legends.
Alright, my number 7 is a game that actually is more boring than Dice Settlers.
That's impossible. Can you give a rating to this game? Because I can't for Dice Settlers.
Well, I don't... Have you... It's FIF France 1429. I don't know if you've ever...
I feel like I've seen that. I do not gravitate towards those kinds of games.
It was a fairly decent-sized Kickstarter.
Okay.
And you kind of sit there and you think about, because I was a history guy in college and everything, and the art, everything's like really like old France, you know, the art. So it hits. The art looks legit, but it's so like it's just boring. It's like I bought all the add-ons. I had the metal coins. I had all the 3D buildings and all that cool stuff. But you're these, you take these different positions.
Well, it looks
in
boring.
France.
First
Oh,
of
I
all.
know it is. Yeah. I can't remember the company that did it. But
I guess then again, Orleans looks really boring
yeah,
too.
it does.
So.
but anyway, but it you were competing with other players, and you would like marry off family members. 'Cause you'd have family members in your deal, and you'd marry them off to try to get allegiances. And there was the one person, whoever was the I can't remember the Pope, I guess, would be the all saying deal, and you know, everything.
Okay.
And it was just it was just really boring. It was like trying to play a high school history book. You know, I mean, it had the potential to it, but it just didn't grab on. You know, and because we played a 5-player game.
Oh wow.
And
Was that your first game?
Yeah, and it was the only game, because everything was recommending 4 to 5 players. You know, to get that whole in all that stuff going. But there was like these event cards that would pop up, drought here. You'd lose people, or you know, you could play cards on people that would cause shit to happen. So there was take that in a game like this too, and it was just
in like a war game almost.
It wasn't really a war. Yeah, I mean, it was. I don't know. It was just, it tried to put a little bit of everything into it. But then that whole take that with the cards, that really screwed people over. Because I remember having a chapped ass about that.
Oh, I bet.
Because I was married to somebody.
Yeah.
And we had this my fiefdom build up and everything, and then somebody played this card or whatever. It was like Black Plague or something, and it was like, I was like, fuck.
Yeah, thanks. I've been here for 3 hours.
Or the person I was married to like decided to screw me and like left and married the guy, my neighbor,
gotcha,
or something like that, you know. And it was just like,
that sounds like sounds like a hot mess.
It's
thematic, I guess.
It's like the Game of Thrones board game, but not fun.
Well,
because the Game of Thrones board game is good, the base game without anything else.
And that's, you know, actually, that's what I was going to say, is like those kinds of games, at least if you get dicked over, it's the other person who is doing that in a negotiation. They didn't just play a card and be like, oh, lucky me.
Right.
Yeah, that sounds horrendous.
I ended up selling it for more than I paid for it, so it was a win.
All right, so you got, I usually don't make my money back on these. I usually just try to get rid of them. All right. My number 6 is one of the first games I backed on Kickstarter based off its IP alone. And this company has actually done, now they've actually done like these other kinds of IPs, and that is Dark Souls.
Yeah, I was going to call that. That's what I was going to say. It was on here somewhere.
Yeah, it's and this is interesting because I backed this on. I didn't even play Dark Souls at the time. No, I was playing it. But I was really big into, From Software games. So I backed this, and my only regret for this is that I didn't keep it for its minis. Because this is one, because I'm a fan of From Software games now, that I wish I just had. And now it's astronomically expensive to try and find. This game was so all over the place in terms of, okay, what if we take an IP from a single-player game and try to make it to where everyone, like, you play with multiple people. And it's like, but that doesn't work because we have to share souls. So therefore, whenever we're trying to spend souls to get anything good, only one of us is really getting anything good out of it. So the rest of the team, it's like if one of us dies, then we lose. We only have a limited number of resets because they had to come up with some way for us to lose the game. And you trudge through this, and because From Software games are all about the grind. And in a video game, that works. You go and reset, boom, they're all immediately back. It takes 2 seconds for you to go back and start fighting monsters. In a board game, okay, well, we need to go back to the bonfire and reset. Okay, let's put all these miniatures back. Let's flip all these over, and then let's like shuffle this, and then we'll do this. And okay, that took 5 minutes. All right. let's do it all over again for the next 3 or 4 times before we're finally enough to go fight the mini boss. It's just, it doesn't work. And I'm so glad that, because here's one thing Simon does well, at least their games are streamlined. They're not, so whenever they're doing Bloodborne, I'm like, oh, thank God. Like, it's not Steam Ford's doing this with Bloodborne, which would just make me cry. Granted, I'd still buy it for the minis, because Bloodborne's my favorite video game. But yeah, so this one, the only good thing is the fights were dynamic. Like, I really enjoyed, and playing this game solo worked out pretty well, because it's like, alright, it's a solo video game. Translates pretty well to a solo game. However, I just wish there was just a way that you can just fucking, like, the boss fights. Because they were really fun. They had their own deck that, instead of shuffling it, like, so you could learn how the monster was fighting. It had its, where its directional thing, where it's going to do this, and you can try and counter. Those were a lot of fun. And I've heard that someone on BGG had made, like, a streamlined, like, a rules variant that made this game a lot better. At the time, I was like, you know what? All right, I'll print that and I'll get it again. But at this point, the game is just insanely expensive.
Yeah, people are still dropping like $400 or $500 on big collections of it, and I'm like,
I don't get it. And there's a lot of stuff for it. A lot of bosses, a lot of expansions, especially when they include allies. The summons you can get in the. Have you played Dark Souls?
I have not. I know about the world. I know. Yeah.
So you can get like allies that can help, but there's also invaders that can come in. So they did a pretty good job of actually incorporating the IP into this, which I got to commend them for. However, it just didn't translate well. So this was also one of the first Kickstarters I saw that made like $4 million.
It was, I think, one of the higher ones at the time.
Yeah. It's not like $4 million. It's like,
yeah.
God, that's shit now. No, so yeah, that's my number 6. A big letdown for an IP that I really like.
Yeah. All right, my number 6 is an old Kickstarter, like 2014.
Okay.
And I didn't even back it. Chad.
Gotcha.
Denton did.
Okay.
So I played his copy with him. And was very let down by this because the theme was perfect, fully cooperative fantasy, and it's myth.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to specifically say Myth 1.0 because...
Was there ever another version that came out later?
All these rule rewrites and everything have come out. They did a 2.0 rule rewrite, and there were still problems, and then they did a 3.0, and I guess everybody's kind of happy with it now at the 3.0 a few years later.
Yeah.
But
years later, I feel like I just saw that they did a 3.0, like not too long ago.
Maybe that's the case.
Yeah,
that's 6 years. They're still working on the rules.
I really, because I remember this game. I remember seeing it when I got into the hobby, and everyone said it was a mess to try and play.
It was a hot mess. Like that rule book was, and me and Chad have played a lot of games over the years, and this rule book was bad.
Wow.
And for a fully cooperative game to not be able to know anything. You were talking about that one game where, at one point where before we started recording.
Oh, Rackbusters?
Yeah. This was like the whole fucking rule book. It was like, well, okay, what do I do now? It doesn't say. I was like, well, we'll do this. And it's like, what happens when we do this? It's like, I don't know. God. It was bad. And
what are they? There's a job where people specifically write instruction manuals. I can't remember what it's called.
Right, but playtest the shit.
Or that, yeah.
It's like... I've done a lot of playtesting for for iOS stuff, and that's one of the things they do. When you're in it, they give you the rule book. Read it, play it follow these rules. Say if there's any questions. That's where you get these things.
Yeah,
and it's just like, how in the hell do you go 6 years before you finally get the rule book right?
It's because what most likely happened was all they did was gather close people that they know, and they sat with them the entire time and played with them. And it's like, well, you don't learn anything that way because you, of course, know how your game works. You designed the damn thing.
Well, and it's not a company. It wasn't a very big company either. It was.
Yeah.
It was.
Because I really feel like that this company is going back on Kickstarter for.
God only knows.
But it's not for expansions. It's not like for more content. I think it's just for rules. Which is like.
Publisher was MegaCon Games.
No idea.
I don't know.
I mean, I can't imagine that they put too
somehow
much effort.
It says weight 3.84 out of 5, which makes it sound like a really heavy game. It's probably because you can't fucking
figure out how to play it. Yeah, I guarantee you that's what it is.
I mean, I don't know. And I would be glad to try it again if the rules were, I heard that 3.0 fixed everything and it was going, because the minis were cool for they're not as cool as what comes out now with Simon and Kingdom Death and all that stuff, but back then, it was like, this was kind of neat at the time, This was kind of one of the early games where we're going to throw a bunch of miniatures into it, play, but no. The rulebook killed it for...
Because I remember, I think, seeing Rado do a run-through for this, and I was like, oh, that sounds cool. But yeah, like, that is so bad. And here's the thing. When it comes to Kickstarters, that's the one thing you gotta focus on is their rulebook, because unlike a company... Say AEG releases a game, the rules are shit, you reach out to them, they're probably going to respond and do a pretty good job, or at least fixing the issue. These Kickstarter companies can't do that. They either can't afford to do it, or, and you see Mythic Games, I'm going to name drop them, they make phenomenal games when you can trudge through their rule book.
Yeah.
So it's a barrier that just sucks ass.
Yep. So that's my number 6, Myth.
All right. Oh, for the record, my pledge for Dark Souls was $80, but I paid a little bit more to get some of the extra stuff. I didn't do an all-in pledge, but... Alright. My number 5 is our first crossover. Probably our only crossover. We might have one more.
Crossover? The Settlers?
Dice Settlers.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you played the other ones.
Yep. Oh, well, okay. So we'll probably just have this one. I had forgotten you had played Dice Settlers.
Down the list, I think we'll have crossover.
Oh, okay.
I think there's probably 2 on this list that I bet we cross over still from this point on.
So if you're saying we'll have 3?
Yeah.
Okay, I think we'll have 2. But yeah, Dice Settlers, everything you said. For the record, this game was $75 also. I don't know how much you paid for it.
$45.
Yeah. So
they were giving it away.
And I played this with Kat, and we sat there, and this was the same issue with Godspeed, where... Because whenever we play games casually, I like to listen to music. I don't get distracted by it, and in fact, it only enhances the experience if you can get the right kind. So this one, we sat there and we're like, okay, this exists. All right, I'm gonna sell this because it is so bad, and that it's really the company. The company does such great work that. Yeah. I don't know how this came to be, and how they're getting an expansion. I don't know, and how. I mean, because I remember they had like their initial artwork, and then they're like, "Hey, we're redoing the art," and it was worse. And I'm like, ugh. So the game doesn't even look good. The tiles are extremely bland. The mechanics are as average as you can get. Here's the thing. This came and the other. It came out 2 years ago.
It felt like 20, a game that came out like
in the
7 or 8 years
80s.
ago. Well, I mean, like
I know.
early Kickstarter kind of stuff.
Even then, it's like early 2000s. You were getting things like Arkham or Talisman, which of course not a lot of people like Talisman, but at least there's the theme. At least there's interesting things that pop up. There was nothing. I have never played a game so much where I couldn't rate it something because it was just so vanilla.
Well, and then the title of the game too, because when I first saw the title, I was like, "Oh, it's a dice version of Imperial Settlers" or something like that.
Oh yeah,
that's what had popped in my head. I know it wasn't the same game.
Yeah,
but I think that was a lot of dice. Dice.
Yeah.
Dice versions of games or stuff.
Yeah,
but no.
So. I knew it was going on this list, and funny enough, I put it at number 5 because it's an average.
There you go.
It exists. I don't. Yeah, Dice Settlers is my number 5.
All right, my number 5 is one I thought we might cross over on. We'll see. I backed this on Kickstarter. I did not even open it because I played another person's copy of it and then sold mine because I like the base game. I like the first expansion for it. Okay, it is Evolution Climate.
I forgot Evolution was a Kickstarter.
Yes.
I remember the Climate.
The Climate was...
I didn't know...
horrible.
Is it Evolution Climate?
Yeah. It's the Climate version of it.
I forgot that was a standalone.
Yeah, it's a standalone.
Yep. I remember seeing it and I was like, oh, I'm not putting expansions on.
I like Evolution. My family
that
loves
would have
Evolution.
been on my list sure.
So Evolution by itself, fine.
Bad.
You know? I mean, it's not my favorite game in the world, but it's not my top 100. But it's my family plays it, enjoys it. It's a good game, fairly quick.
So
the Flight expansion was okay, but
real quick. All I'm gonna say is that this is gonna retroactively make my list. I'm not gonna throw it in because these games, but I'm gonna jump in and say this is on my list because Climate. I have a story about that one. So this would be centered around how the game's bad and how the company pissed me off.
Oh, North Star. But this expansion though just totally. Did not hit the mark. Doing the whole temperature switching crap. It was just...
And because they didn't take my advice. That's not true.
You can do your story now.
No, I was gonna kind of play into yours. Evolution itself is not horrible. The base game. Flight I thought was pretty interesting. No, you can do your thing. I'll throw in my story.
Well, I was just gonna say. I mean, that's pretty much it. It was adding something for. That did not jive with the original game system, and it made the game longer. It made it not fun.
And
it was just I don't even know. After one play, I was like, this ruins Evolution for me, so I can't deal with it. You know, because Evolution by itself I enjoy throwing this in there. And I didn't even try it solo because it kind of mixed because you can mix in, and stuff. But the game by itself probably wouldn't even be decent either.
Yeah. So here's my story with this company and with the game. So I'll talk about Evolution Climate. First of all, everything you said is absolutely right. They made the whole game surround the climate, and the climate didn't even fucking matter because everything that people are supposed to do. Like, the players are collectively supposed to try and keep it from swaying one way or the other. I have played this game, because I play tested this. And this basically almost killed my drive for even play testing people's shit because the designer, or whoever I was in correspondence with, was such an asshole. So I remember playing this a couple years ago. This was like 3 or 4 years at Gen Con with a couple of the guys. And I was like, you know what? Sure, we'll jump down on this. We got done playing, and their response was like, so what was the point of that? I'm like, exactly. Because everything that you do, you put in, you try and keep food, and then certain cards events that can come up can sway it one way or the other. The cards you put in, because obviously you want to try and sway it either too hot or too cold to make your thing thrive. But the way that they did the balancing thing was like, okay, this many icons from all the cards were the sun. This was the frost. You subtract whichever one had the most. It moves that many spaces one way or the other. And then obviously you have the food. Mm-hmm. Whenever I play tested this, I play tested it so many times because they gave me such a short window to actually play it that's what I took a weekend out. I got friends over, and that's all we did was play test that game, and I kept giving them feedback. Their concern was I was giving them feedback too quickly, apparently, so they thought I was just making shit up. Right. Because I think their incentive was like, hey, we'll give you a free copy if you get it. I don't give a fuck about your free standalone $30 expansion. I was just happy at the time to playtest something before it even came out. Mm-hmm. So whenever the guy emailed me about that, he's like, hey, are you sure you're actually playing this? And I responded it's actually really insulting that you would assume that I'm lying to get a free copy of your, at best, average game. I can quit if you want me to. And then his response was he's like, no, I'm just really under stress from this whole Kickstarter thing. I apologize. I'm like, all right, never got a copy. I'm like, okay, I don't even care because it was trash. But those were the exact same points. The little meter, it's there. Because if it goes too hot or too cold, the game ends or people die or whatever. I hate that company.
It adds a segment that doesn't need to be there. Like the whole thing was Predator. You're trying to survive with food, but then it brings in that semi-co-op part, trying to keep the temperature, and it just adds...
Yeah, stuff, and it didn't work. It was incredibly boring and superfluous. So, yep, that's a good one. That is a really good one. That would have been another one that centers around the experience of their. Well, not even wouldn't even count for me as a Kickstarter because I didn't back it.
Right.
But that is a Kickstarter game, and that is a bad one. So good job. No, unfortunately, it's not on my list, though. It would be, though. It'd probably honestly be around 2 or 3. So, my number 4 is such a cringe game that I've actually had someone defend it on the run-through. I don't think I responded because I'm like, I'm not getting into this with you. And that is So Long My World, which you probably haven't heard of unless you've heard me bitch about it. You probably heard me bitch about it.
But yeah,
I like to dub this as Hot Topic, the card game, because it's so emo and cringe, like early 2000s Goo Goo Dolls, like cringe. Where the whole premise of this game was that it was gonna like, because they say it's in like an adult themed game where it's like you have to come to grips with mortality in it, and it asks all these questions or touches on these topics that a lot of people don't like to talk about. And I was like, you know what, that could be like, it's a depressing game. And I'm like, okay, well, that could be interesting, so I'll back it. It was like $50. And what it turned out to be was some weird mechanic where there was a lot of different spaces that you go on, and you try to combo off your cards with some events that are happening and then the locations that you're at. So the theming of this game completely went out the window because it ended up not being about reality. It heavily alluded to a computer simulation where the people in the simulation realized that they were in a simulation and the simulation was being deleted. So they were dying. However, they're not real, so who cares? It was just like the flavor text was like some weird goth chick writing in her diary, and it was bad. It was so bad. The game was extremely boring. What I explained of what the actual game was is my best memory of it because I've tried to block it. That I'm like, I just remember that the theming was just it was hilariously bad. So yeah, that's my number 4. So Long My World.
All right. Sounds fun.
It was not. I wish. I do. I still. Oh. I knew that was going to happen. I have the art. I have the art book. We're going to disappear and nobody will remember us. Then, what was the point of our existence? Well, probably for some porn game. I mean, the art, because the art is like, the art's not bad. Like, it's kind of like that silhouette.
Yeah.
Kind of art style. And then they had a bunch of like small card expansions. Let's see. And then this is where these are like so there's some of the artwork, and then this is like some of the snippets you get, some coding.
Gotcha.
That
strange. And
they were like, the locations were like on these tarot cards. It was kind of a weird area control for these. Oh, it's so hot. Oh, look at that one right there. I know there's a reason why I kept this. But yeah, it was just, humanity has the power to destroy itself. Nothing else in this universe is capable of that. Not this world, not the sun. Come and get our soul. Yeah.
Awesome.
Why do I still have this? Anyway, that's my number 4, So Long My World.
All right, my number 4 I know you have not played.
Okay.
It is a little card game called Incredibrawl.
Okay, well that already sounds horrible.
Well, here's the deal. It was promoted. I mean, to be honest, here's the deal. It says each player guides a colorful cast. Each player guides a colorful cast of characters from all corners of imagination as they meet in an epic clash for glory. Summon the right characters at the right time to outwit your opponents. Use whatever strategy you can muster to overcome the randomness of the brawl. Now,
okay.
So to me, this was almost like, because what happened is everybody has the same deck of cards with the same characters.
Okay.
Right? Different power abilities, different numbers, whatever. And you pick one. You should start with a hand of 5. You play one face down, and you flip, almost like an Exit Empires kind of. You know how you pick one card out of your hand, put it face down, and you reveal.
Yep.
Well, then after you reveal, every card has an ability, so the ability will pop off, and then it's paper, rock, scissors.
Really?
Virtually, it's paper, rock, scissors.
Okay.
This symbol beats that symbol. That
Okay.
symbol beats this symbol. There's no strategy to this at all. And the first person to get 10 glory wins the brawl.
Yeah.
You know, and everybody. So there was like, and it was weird stuff. Like I think there was like a pirate, and then there was like a unicorn, and there was like there was no weird. It was just weird shit all over the place. And if you played the same, there was a leprechaun, and you had to flip a coin.
Okay.
If you played the leprechaun to see what would happen,
Yeah.
or something, or if there was a tie, then it would get. It was just a complete mess.
When did this come out?
2014.
Okay.
Wow. I actually still have a prototype copy at home.
Should have brought that. Yeah. That sounds super fun. I mean, I loved Eggs and Empires
and all that stuff. No, this Eggs and Empires. There's a little bit of strategy to it.
Yeah.
This one is just like complete. It doesn't really matter what you play, because if you play with 4 people, it goes 2 to 4. If you play with 4 people, you could play a hand where, you know, you beat that person beats me, that person beats me. Oh, nobody gets glory that round because everybody beat each other.
Oh,
you know, I mean, the games just took forever.
Yeah,
and it was kind of like a dumb paper rock scissors version of Smash Up, because of the way the theme was. You know, they had all these characters drop into a deck and everything.
But they didn't really want to put in any effort into actual,
and it wasn't
into the cards.
It was a. I don't even know if the company's done anything else, but it's V3G is the company.
Nope.
So, yeah, they did Strife.
That means nothing to me. I'm like, I don't even know what that is either.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, just don't do it
Okay.
if you find it. Sometimes you'll see it on some of the Facebook groups for sale.
Yeah.
Just don't do it. It's not worth it.
All right. Yeah, that sounds horrible. All right. My number 3 is my second Pandasaurus game on here, and that is Dead Man's Cabal.
Oh yeah, I forgot that was a Kickstarter.
Yeah, most people probably forgot that this exists. For good reason. So once again, not an expensive game, $50. Another reason similar to Godspeed, and once again confirms my theory that they're really trying to capture lightning in a bottle with how Dinosaur Island succeeded so well. This one, you were playing like a necromancer that you're trying to like gather these components to be able to raise these cards, these bodies from the dead. Again, they do a really good job with their Kickstarter because they make it seem like it's going to be something that it doesn't end up being. And this one, the reason why it's higher is because Godspeed, I can still see a lot of people liking Godspeed. Dead Man's Cabal, I find it hard. If someone says they like it, it's like, okay, but have you played literally anything else? Like,
right.
Do you like anything else other than this game? And it comes back to the tide or the company that they should know better. And this game, it was like similar, like I said, to Dinosaur Island, had like a bunch of different mini games, and you would draw these skulls, these plastic skulls from a hat that you needed to collect, or not from a hat, what? From a bag. From a bag. So then you would have it. Then you would be able to dictate which section of the mini game you want to do, and they all had their different gimmicks around them, and they all kind of centered. The game looked awful as well, but they all centered around. Eventually, you would be placing these skulls in a specific, whatever the star symbol with the pentagram. Thank you. In a specific order that coincided with a card like that you wanted to play, and that would get you points. Whenever we were playing this, I was like, okay, well, you guys want to record it? And they're like, yeah. And then, so we were playing it, and halfway through, I'm like, this is so abysmally boring and bad and stupid that I don't want to record this. Like, we're no one's interested. Like, there's no banter. We're not talking to one another because we're just so captivated by how awful this game was. So I was like, we'll just do a review over it, and instead of run through a review, and then I could wipe my hands clean and sell it. So, yeah. So surprisingly, 2 bad Kickstarters from the same company that at this point I probably will not be backing them on their games anymore, just because they've had one really, really good one that's a 10 out of 10 for me, and then 2 that are under 5.
you need to try one game that just popped in my head that is also good.
By them?
Yes. Is Wasteland Express.
Oh, that was the other one.
Try that one.
Okay.
Because it has almost the same kind of art.
Yeah.
As Dinosaur Island, kind of.
Okay.
That
90s.
Yeah, the hot pink.
Yeah, the retro
stuff, but it has game trays in it, and that's just the retail version even. But it's a good one. It's a pickup delivery.
Yeah,
type thing.
I think a lot of people ended up liking it, and I'm surprised because it is pick up and deliver.
They do it in a cool way though.
Okay,
it's a good one.
All right. Yep. So, well, then if that one's good, then that'll be was that Kickstarter?
Yes, I want to say yes. I'm not 100% sure.
Gotcha.
I bought a retail.
If that one's good, then they'd be 2 and 2, so they'd be average. But still, I probably won't be backing them until I can actually play their games from retail. So, yeah, that's my number 3, Dead Man's Cabal.
All right, my number 3 is one that I think it would make your list if you had backed it. I don't know if you put it on your list because you didn't back it. You and I actually played it together for the first time and hated it.
Okay.
And that's Masmorra, Dungeons of Arcadia.
Oh, yeah. That would be on here if I did not back it.
Right.
Once again, it's still a Kickstarter game, though. I looked through what I did when I made my list. I looked through the games that I backed.
Mm-hmm. I did that to start with, and then
except
any of them I played.
For my number 1. My number 1 I did not back.
My number 1 I didn't back either.
So yeah. Anyway, so Masmorra, that's a good one.
So I love Arcadia Quest, most of it. And then so I was like, okay, Masmorra. It had a cheaper price point. It had the hero miniatures still. You could use those miniatures. There was a crossover pack that would put them into Arcadia Quest and vice versa, bring Arcadia Quest people into this.
Yeah.
But then they brought in, and I almost didn't back it because there was 0 monster miniatures. They were dice. And that, which I understand now why it was a lower price point, because they didn't have all the miniatures. But so like you'd go into a room, it was like a dungeon explorer, you'd go in, a tile would flip.
And I think the heroes were also dice, weren't they?
No, the heroes
they were
miniatures.
minis? Okay,
Yeah.
I couldn't remember.
And then you'd roll these monster dice. It would say whatever dice, and whatever rolled was the monster that was in that deal, and you'd have to fight them, and there was treasures and everything. But, I mean, we played it cooperatively, because you could play it competitively or cooperatively.
Yeah.
We did co-op, and it just there was no challenge. I mean, you breeze through it like unnaturally too simple,
right?
And because you'd level up as you did stuff, like you could make your.
It was almost like a mix of their Massive Darkness and Arcadia Quest, but cheaper.
Right. This was such a letdown because I was really pumped for this one.
Yeah.
Even with the dice, I got gotten over that fact. The reason it's not my number 1 is because they had a deal where the characters in that were at least playable in Arcadia Quest.
Oh yeah, you're right.
So I was like, okay, that was the saving grace. It still made the list, and it's pretty high.
It kind of sucks though, because then you can't resell it if it's bad, because you want to keep the heroes.
Well, I sold it anyway. I didn't.
You didn't keep the heroes, but I mean, if you wanted to keep the heroes because you like Arcadia Quest so much, not you, but like y'all,
right.
Then you have half a game that you're like, well, I can't do this, and the game's so bad that I can't go back to it.
Well, there was somebody gullible that paid me a lot more than they should have for it, so I sold it to them.
Yeah, you get really lucky with your people. I'm not so lucky.
But
I just try to break even.
Yeah, but
that's
anyway,
a good one. Yeah,
at Masmorra, it was just
the game's not good, but that's a good pick for this list.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was a big letdown for sure.
All right, my number 2 is what I think would have been our second crossover. So unless it's your number 2 or weirdly your number 1. That'll be interesting, but this one kind of surrounds the company because it's I think it's just a mom and pop kind of company, and it is Moonshiners of the Apocalypse.
See, I haven't played that one.
I thought you did play it. Oh, okay.
I've heard you talk about
that's
it before,
right. That's right. So okay, well then we'll only have the one crossover. So Moonshiners of the Apocalypse was a game that sounded really interesting, post-apocalyptic, but it was kind of not necessarily, it was a resource gathering where you were trying to find things within the apocalypse to survive some crazy, Junkertown skanky people. And not only was this game extremely fiddly with its resources and completely mismarketed, what they showed pictures of were not what you got. They didn't even compensate for like because how many resources you can gather. Like you could run out and there was nothing left. They added an event deck which had no explanation of what to do with it. It was just there. Right. The components were really cheap. It was all standees, but like it's like okay, but some of them had minis. It was like okay, what are the minis for? And what are these standees? Okay, so the minis are grunts, but it's like okay. By the halfway through this game, as more tiles get revealed, which allow you, if you control that area, to be able to get more resources that you combine into gold, which you need to get a certain amount of gold before you can get on the hot air balloon to escape the town. As more tiles got flipped, more people showed up. But how you put them on the board was you rolled a d20. Right. And they can't go on, like, the one standee cannot go on a spot that already had a standee. So you just had to keep rolling until a result showed up. And you fought them by drinking them under the table. It was so dumb. This game was so dumb. And, like, I remember in the run-through, you can actually watch me. Eventually, I'm just going to quit rolling. I'm just going to put these on because otherwise it's like, 11. Nope, there's one there. All right, 15. Nope. 6. Nope. Okay. Oh, finally. Okay, I got 5. Got to do this 4 more times. Yeah. So fiddly. Such a mess. And I believe the company, after whoever, like, it's Too Fat to Fly Games. Their excuse for why they didn't compensate for what they were promised was just that it got too expensive. But then it's like, okay, well, don't be a company who wants to make a game and then turn around. Like, don't act like you want to be a business, and then whenever people treat you like a business, don't be like, oh no, take pity on us. Right. It's just me and my wife. It's like, okay, well then if you can't afford to support your game, then you can't afford to make the game.
Right.
It's like people who are like, oh well, I don't tip. Like I don't have enough money to tip. It's like if you don't have enough money to tip, you don't have enough money to go out to eat.
Right.
Same concept here. I am extremely hesitant on their next game. I think it's Trouble in Templetown. So I think it's about diseases or something manifesting. I don't know. This game it looked bad. Their comic book, which was $10, was 3 pages. So all their add-ons were shit. Their response to criticism or, hey, by the way, here's all your pictures, like I'm supposed to get like metal, like fake metal gold ingots or whatever, like what Scythe has or whatever. No, they were all cardboard and looked awful. Yeah, this was a bad one. This would have been my number 1 had I not thought of my number 1 afterwards. Gotcha. So, Moonshiners of the Apocalypse, my number 2.
All right, my number 2. When you think of Greater Than Games, the company,
I think of Spirit Island.
Spirit Island, which is awesome. Above and beyond.
Right.
Sentinels of the Multiverse. Another super big hit.
Yeah.
Right. Then there was this one, and I backed this one because at the time I was really into Sentinels of the Multiverse.
Okay.
And most of the games they'd come out, well, pretty much all of the Kickstarters this company had did up to this point was Sentinels related.
All right.
And then they came out with one called Galactic Strike Force. They decided to switch.
I'm familiar with that.
They decided to switch to a space theme, right? And it's cooperative. It's a deck builder. The theme is like you're supposed to be kind of like these low life, kind of scoundrels, and space pirates and stuff. But then there's these bad things coming. So then you are all aboard this ship, and you're trying to save the galaxy. So you're deck building to make your ship stronger and give more weapons and do all this crap. And it was probably one of the worst deck builders I've ever played.
This looks pretty bad too.
They had a miniatures add-on to give you like ship miniatures and all that stuff.
Yeah.
People just they can't give it away. Like it's in clearance racks, you'll see it and everything. It's it just kind of was one of those things. Like we're just gonna sweep this under the rug.
Right.
Forget.
Hey guys, remember Spirit
Island?
Island?
Yes. Right? Sentinels of the Multiverse.
Yeah. No, that's us. What about Galactic Strike? What was that?
Well, they almost, like, another one that might have been on this list from them, I didn't end up backing it, was the Sentinels Tactics. Because they tried to do a miniature skirmish game in the Sentinels Multiverse, where you had the little miniatures of the Sentinels, the Multiverse heroes and bad guys, but I didn't back it, so this was worse anyway.
Gotcha.
They tried to jump out of their superhero wheelhouse. It didn't work.
Well, I mean, it did now.
Yeah, exactly. It did now for sure, but this one almost seemed like it was rushed.
Probably.
For some reason. It was horrible.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It was a big letdown, and why there was no need for miniatures.
Just because, everyone likes miniatures, so why not? Let's add another pack.
And it fell flat.
Yeah.
Like, this was...
Yeah, I'd never heard of it. I mean, Greater Than Games, they're not like a super well-known company. Like, I only thought of the one, but I forgot. I know Sentinels of the Multiverse, so... yeah, I don't know. I don't know what makes these companies decide to just... It's like they think their name will sell it, which, apparently it did because it funded.
Well, yeah, that's why I did it. It funded pretty well, too.
Yeah.
I did it because of Sentinels of the Multiverse. After this game came out, a few years after this, before Spirit Island, is when they merged with Dice Hate Me games and stuff and kind of put together. But yeah, it was a big shit bomb.
All right, that's pretty cool. Also, for the record, before I go to my number one, Moonshiners was a $70 price point, and not including the add-ons. So yeah, that was a waste of money. All right, you have any guess on what my number one is?
Is it anything you haven't backed it?
I didn't back it, but I have played it extensively.
Oh. I have no idea.
It was, before Frosthaven, the highest funded Kickstarter.
Oh, KDM?
Kingdom Death Monster is my number one. And there's a lot of reasons that go into this. And what I'm going to try and focus on a few points. But I have played a full campaign of Kingdom Death Monster. We finished, this is a 30-session campaign. Longest running, besides once I eventually finished Gloomhaven, it's the longest running series on my channel. And you can see, if you watch that, my ebb and flow of emotion throughout this entire thing. First of all, the base pledge for this game is $400. That's the core.
Oh, yeah.
Not saying you don't get a lot in the core, but when you think of $400, you think of things like this.
Yes.
You don't think of sprues, which is already... And they want this game to be a lifestyle game. However, they don't provide enough variety, replayability, or really anything to make it a lifestyle game. So you're playing the same shit over and over and over, and you have to put the minis together, which they also have no real clear rules in how to do it. There's another guy or website called Vibrant, where they've taken pictures, and you can find those. Those are pretty good. But for the extras, it's like, good luck. So you have to already decide whether or not you want to put minis together, which I actually kind of liked. However, this game, mainly what I'm going to say is that this designer, which is pretty much just his company, the game feels like it was done in the early 2000s. The issues that they have with this game are things that they've carried over into what games have evolved from to this day, so it doesn't fit their lore. The only thing that I love about this is its theme. It is so cool. It's like whenever you start to find snippets when playing a Dark Souls or Bloodborne game where it's like, well, I don't really know what's going on, but as you find more and more info, it's awesome. That's the thing with this. However, in those other games, those other examples that I gave, you can find that. Everything here is just speculation. It's all in this guy's mind, his coked out mind, that he just like Trump tweets out randomly, and we're like, oh my god, Adam said something about the game.
Yeah.
And it's been so long, years, that since before Wave 3 and 4, he just keeps adding stuff. Constantly keeps adding stuff. Mm-hmm. So now it's quality, or it's quantity over quality, that it just keeps just bloating and bloating and bloating. This is the best example of what a Kickstarter shouldn't be, because it's not streamlined and refined. The game is so swingy in luck, and I sold everything, because I backed Wave 3 and 4 on their Black Friday thing. Mm-hmm. I sold everything for $3,200. That is an astronomical amount of money for a fucking game, for a, at best, average game. And people who love this game they love this game. They're on Reddit, they're on Facebook, they're just jacking it to these, you know...
They have those pin-up things.
They have pin-ups, and it's like, people, like, just, it's like, look, dude, do you need to talk to someone? Like, they're buying a lot of those, and why are they sticky? No, so, I can't go too much into this. I will say, at the time of this recording, because this top 10 will go up before, I did 3 discussions for this game. Mm-hmm. I did one after about a few playthroughs. We were done doing it. I did about maybe 10. I did a second one myself. And then we did it after the campaign. That is a 2-hour discussion. And I made a list of pros and cons over this game when we did the discussion. I don't do that.
Right.
Every other discussion, it's, okay, here's what we got. Let's talk about our thoughts. Let's review it. I structured this one because there was so much about it that I wanted to talk over. And I ranked them. Okay, here are the best pros about it. You know, whatever, how many I had, 6 to 1. Mm-hmm. Here are the cons. So I'll try to even it out. And, yeah, it ended up being 2 hours long. So, whenever you see this, when that comes out, watch that, because that is going to definitely explain why I think this is one of the worst Kickstarters. But it comes around to, the game is extremely random, punishing for the sake of being punishing, no real reason why. The reasons why behind a lot of their decisions make no sense. The mess of the rule book and the mess of, like, the campaign, the mess of the delivery of making people who have spent thousands of dollars, hundreds of dollars on your game wait years as just being in limbo, waiting for their fucking game to come out in hope. Like, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if those did not come out. Yeah. Like, if eventually he's just like, it's too much. Like, sorry, I kept adding too much. All the money that you guys gave me, all the millions of dollars I used on my drug addiction that fuels my mind to make your game. Whew. Yeah. So whenever we were making this, I initially didn't even think of KDM, and then I'm like, nope, that one is bad. That one has just, it's so frustrating. And it wouldn't be that bad. And the reason why I think some people just love this game, I honestly think it's denial. I think they've spent so much money that they force themselves to like it.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, oh no, oh my god, I used my month's mortgage money on an expansion. Like, I have to like it. It's like, no. Because I guarantee you all the problems that this game had, if it was a $70, $100 game, people would just shit on it and throw it away. Yep. Nope. Now when you spend $400, you have to trick yourself into liking it. So, yeah. $3,200 though, I couldn't pass up.
No, that's good.
Right. So that's my number one, Kingdom Death Monster.
All right, my number one has been number one on an old list of ours. I don't know what the list was. It was a negative list, obviously, because this is a horrible game. I assume. I've never played this game even. I followed this game on Kickstarter though when it was in 2014. Maybe it was our worst of 2014 list or something when we were doing those worst of.
We did like the top 5.
Yeah,
top 5 worst. We went back because we weren't doing these lists until
this
like
one
20.
Is called. It has a 3.7 rating on BGG.
That's funny.
It's called.
Would I guess it? Would I be able to guess it?
No.
Okay.
I mean, you'll remember when I say it, but it's the Emperor's New Clothes.
Oh, come on! Yes, the
Everything's Blank.
That was a troll game.
It's still a game. It's on BGG.
No one's played that game.
And here's what it says though. Here's the deal. It says, and this is the listing. In Emperor's New Clothes, players pretend to take on roles and pretend that each role card indicates the types of resources and sets of resources required to score points. Blank dice are rolled, 3 rolls per turn, to pretend to acquire resources, and cards may be played by the active player and opponents to affect dice rolls. This was... And
you know the story around this, right?
No, I do.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, it was still a Kickstarter. It was still successful. And it was still, that
is so funny.
Okay,
you are not wrong. It is by far the worst Kickstarter. But that virtually almost doesn't count.
It hits the boxes. It's
and when I played it, it was a phenomenal game.
Yeah, exactly. There would be people there's probably people that are going to be on your comments like, that's an awesome game. That's my number one.
I do so well. I get all the resources.
But it's just like, and the this one kind of combined that thing. Like, the gameplay was horrible, obviously, because it's not a game, really. But then it also was a weird thing because it had all this money up and then it dropped out.
Yeah.
You know, it's still backed.
Yeah. Did people ever get their copy?
I think.
I mean, granted, or maybe they just
100 people. That
they sent them a box of the components to make it themselves.
I mean, I know that the people that were getting them, that kept their backing, used it as a components, like for playtesting components. You know, for if they were making a game for like prototypes and stuff. But yeah, I even had a sticker sheet. I mean, it came with everything. It it had all the components.
Okay, so. For everything about Kickstarter, you know, all the great games that we get from it, you know, the people, the small companies that get to make, you know, their games that are good or bad, regardless. Obviously, this is a very subjective list. Everyone's going to hate me that I put KDM as number one. That game is the perfect example of how busted Kickstarter can be. Because you get shitholes like this that get funded, and for no real reason, then you get stuff like that where it's like, I mean, they did nothing.
Even though it was it was almost kind of a gag project.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, but like I said, it's still funded. And I guess, I mean, like I said, if it, I mean, there's a reason. It's still, like I said, it's on BGG and it's rated 3.7. I mean, it's some stupid.
You know that means to get that average of 3.7, someone had to have rated higher.
I know. It's probably the ones that are going to be complaining that's number one on this list.
No, the game was amazing. It's like, I'm just going to block you.
I'll play that over KDM any day.
You know what? I would play that over KDM. At least that I can make it fun. Alright, so that is our top 10 worst Kickstarter games. Let us know what games are the worst from Kickstarter for you in the comments below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.